Having spent 15 years studying organizational peak performance, the question that's driven much of my research is, how do the most successful businesses and brands get to the pinnacle of their industry, but more importantly, stay there? I mean, there are plenty of businesses that have had stellar success over the years, but you turn around and a few years later, they're gone from the scene. I mean, consider how many brands we've seen experience this recently. I mean, BlackBerry, Toys R Us, Atari, Sears, Nokia, Radio Shack, the list goes on. Now, in contrast, you've seen some of the very competitors of those failed brands stay at the cutting edge and enjoy massive growth momentum for many years and even decades. So what have they done differently? Now, examining how these dynamics play in the direct selling world, there are a number of important patterns that no company or no leader in this sector can afford to ignore. Now, in my own experience working with a wide range of direct selling businesses across multiple markets around the world, I'd suggest there are 8 common factors that cause businesses in this industry to lose momentum, the 8 enemies of momentum. Number 1 is complexity. This is a business of multiplication or duplication. So one of the most important drivers of growth is simplicity. This is one of the encouragements or cautions I often give at field conferences. I say, if someone leaves a conversation with you about your business impressed by you, you failed. You want them to leave thinking, hey, if that's all it takes to build this business, I can do it. Now, the challenge is, the longer you're around a business in the direct selling industry, the more you know about the products and the compensation plan and the point structure, you can easily fall into the trap of overcomplicating the business or making it sound complicated because you're such an expert. Now, this industry is complex and no need to shy away from that, but how do you keep this business simple without becoming simplistic, especially when you are introducing new people to it, people who may well feel like they are on the outer if we are not careful. So the first enemy of momentum is complexity, and the antidote is simplicity. Number 2, the second enemy is success. Now, while we all aim for success in this industry, it's important to realize that success has a dark side. After all, success can very easily breed complacency and just the tiniest little bit of arrogance. Now, we don't call it arrogance, of course. We call this certainty or experience. But often notions begin to creep in like, hey, we're so successful, we're the biggest, we're the best, we've sort of got it all figured out. And here's the reality. The moment you think you have made it, you have passed it. Now, the 2 essential postures for maintaining momentum are humility and hunger. Humility to realize there is always more to learn, and hunger to know there's always room to grow. This is something we have to be especially aware of in this industry where field leaders are often edified so well. Now, while honoring those who've achieved success is important, we must become careful this doesn't become, like hero worship that creates a dangerous feedback loop. We must never be so in awe of what has led to success in the past, we assume the same tactics and strategies will work equally well in the future. So the second enemy of momentum is success, and the antidotes are humility and hunger. Number 3, the third enemy are incentives. One of the hallmarks of the direct selling industry is the use of incentives like cars and trips and jewelry and pin recognition ceremonies, and these certainly have their place. The challenge with incentives is that while they spark enthusiasm and excitement and energy in the lead up to the incentive deadline, they can also cause enormous slumps shortly afterward. Now, part of this is about then that natural inclination of fatigue. Part of it's about people cramming in orders and bulking up point scores at the last minute. But the real danger with incentives is that they can lead to a yo-yo effect in business, particularly in direct selling. Now, in his book, Atomic Habits, James Strong talks about the hidden danger of goal setting in building momentum and habit consistency. Sustained growth and momentum is always about the rhythm of activity rather than the rate. You'd be better to have people in your teams doing sustainable activity consistently rather than unsustainable, frenetic activity sporadically, the very sort of activity that incentives often lead to. Now, again, incentives have their place, but we must be careful not to overuse them. So the third danger is short-termism, the sort of activity that comes with incentives. The antidote is focusing on consistency and the sustained rhythm of activity. Number 4, the fourth enemy is friction. Just as in nature, in the business world, friction always slows things down. To put it simply, the friction we've got to watch out for in direct selling is the stuff that impacts the customer experience. It's those things that make it difficult for people to do business with you. The things that add confusion, frustration, bureaucracy, and inefficiency. Some of the most common forms of friction in direct selling that I see are things like the double handling of products in delivery processes, clunky online ordering platforms, and the overuse of jargon that often makes people feel like outsiders. The best way to identify and address friction is something beginning with E. It's empathy. Put yourself in the shoes of a new retail customer or a new distributor. What is it that can so easily make them feel overwhelmed, confused, or on the outer? And so the fourth enemy of momentum is friction in the customer experience. The antidote is empathy. Number 5, the fifth enemy is top loading. Now, while there's a tendency in direct selling to emphasize the long-term possibilities of being part of this industry in terms of, financial freedom and lifestyle, it's as important we make the early stages of building a business tangibly rewarding as well. This means designing compensation plans that give people a quick sense of progress and achievement. After all, progress is the absolute key to perseverance. If people don't feel like they're making gains, they will quickly lose heart and give up. This is especially the case for millennials who, pretty much aren't great at delayed gratification. If you want to avoid the churn this industry so often experiences and have people stick with your business, it is vital they get some quick wins. It's also important to look at payment frequencies too. In the gig economy age, people, and especially millennials, expect to be paid at least weekly, if not more frequently. Monthly bonus or commission payments simply will not cut it in the years to come. So the fifth enemy is top loading of compensations, and the antidote is engineering the business for early wins. Number 6, the sixth enemy of momentum is culture. One of the beautiful things about the direct selling industry, especially in the field, is the culture of belonging, shared values, and cohesion that is generally seen. However, we must be careful that the cohesion doesn't become conformity. There must always be space for divergent views and diversity of perspectives. After all, this is so often where the innovation required to stay at the cutting edge will come from. And so enemy number 6 is an overemphasis on cohesion. The antidote is to foster a diversity of thought. Number 7, the seventh enemy of momentum is innovation. Now this might surprise you. So often we talk about the need to innovate and keep up with the pace of the world around us. However, the sort of innovation I'm talking about here is undisciplined innovation. HP's co-founder David Packard put it well when he said, "Great businesses are more likely to die of indigestion than starvation." Now, in other words, what he was saying is trying to do too much or too quickly or losing focus by moving outside your core areas of strength in the pursuit of change or growth is dangerous. Now, Steve Jobs put it well when he said, focus is not saying yes to the one thing, it is saying no to the 100 other good things in front of you at any given moment. Now, maintaining momentum is as much about what you say no to as it is about what you say yes to from a strategy or innovation perspective. So enemy number 7 is the undisciplined pursuit of innovation, and the antidote is knowing what to say no to. And number 8, the last enemy is evolution. Again, this final enemy of momentum could come as a surprise. After all, we're all told about the importance of constantly evolving, that it's necessary to do so to keep up with change. However, evolutionary change is simply not going to be enough if you're going to maintain relevance and momentum in the years to come. The former head of the business faculty at San Francisco University, a guy named Oren Harari, put it well when he said, "Remember, the electric light never came from the continuous improvement of candles." Isn't that great? Now, what's going to be required in the years ahead for direct selling brands and leaders is a willingness to be revolutionary, not evolutionary. Now, continuous improvement or tweaking of existing systems and approaches will not be enough. What's going to be required is a fundamental rethink of how we do things. Now, this can be daunting and risky, but it will be absolutely necessary in the years ahead. So the 8th and final enemy of momentum is evolutionary change. The antidote is a willingness to be revolutionary in our thinking and our approach. Again, not easy, involves risk, but so necessary. Now, the direct selling world is at a really exciting inflection point. As the attitudes of consumers change and technology lowers the barriers to entry, the coming years tend to be a time of massive growth in this sector. Now, making the most of this opportunity will involve a skill that every surfer knows well. If you're going to ride the momentum of a wave, you've got to paddle out while the wave is still building on the horizon. You've got to get into position. If you leave it too long, not only will you miss the wave, but the wave may well bowl you over. Now, no matter how much success or momentum you've enjoyed in the past, now is the time to do what it takes to avoid these 8 enemies of momentum and position yourself for growth and success like you've never seen before.